Hi everybody, this is The Sand Child by Tahir Benjelloun. This is a read-along. I hope you have your own book. In my book, we're on page 60. This is chapter 8, The Houseless Woman. And so he became a widower. Friends, this episode in his life was painful, disturbing, and incomprehensible. No, it was quite logical, said a member of the audience. He used that poor invalid to reassure himself and strengthen his personality. It reminds me of another story, something that happened at the end of the last century in the south of the country. Allow me to tell it to you quickly. It's the story of a warrior chieftain, a terrible creature named Antad. He was a pitiless leader, a brute with a terrible reputation that went beyond clan and frontiers. He commanded his men without shouting, without making violent gestures. All he had to do was give orders in a quiet voice, contrasting with the words he spoke, and he was never disobeyed. He had his own army and resisted the occupiers without ever challenging the central authority. Feared and respected, he tolerated no weakness or faint-heartedness in his men, ruthlessly pursued and punished the corrupt, and wielded his own power and justice, which were never arbitrary. His strictness was unwavering. His ideas were never compromised. In short, he was an exemplary man of legendary courage. That man, that secretive Antad who slept with his rifle by his side. Yet the day he died, it was discovered that all that terror, all that strength resided in a woman's body. A mausoleum was erected to him on the spot where he died. Today, he is regarded as a saint. He is the marabout of wanderers, venerated by all those who run away, who leave their homes because they are eaten up by doubt, seeking the inner face of the truth. At this point, the storyteller intervened, saying with a smile, "Yes, my friend, I too know that story. It happened perhaps 100 years ago. It is the story of the isolated leader, a figure who fascinated all those who came near him. Sometimes he would turn up veiled. His troops thought he wanted to surprise them, but in fact he was offering his knights to a young man of rough beauty, a sort of wandering bandit, who always carried a dagger, either to defend himself or to take his own life if necessary. He lived in a cave and spent his time smoking kif and awaiting the beauty of his knights. Of course, he never knew that this woman was a woman only in her body, only in her arms. She offered him money. He refused it. She told him which places to burgle and guaranteed him maximum security, then disappeared, only to reappear, unexpected, one starlit night. They said little to each other, mingling their bodies and preserving their souls. It is said that one night they fought, because as they made love she gained the upper position after forcing him to lie on his belly and simulated sodomy. Though the man yelled with rage, she pinned him down with all her strength, immobilizing him, pressing his face into the ground. When he managed to get free, he grabbed his dagger, but, quicker than he, she leapt on him and threw him to the ground. As he fell, the weapon grazed his arms. He began to weep. She spat in his face, kicked him in the balls, and left. It was over. She never came back, and the wounded bandit went mad, left his cave, and took to haunting the entrances of mosques, sick with love and hate. He must have got lost in the crowd or been swallowed up in an earthquake. As for our leader, he died young, without suffering any illness, in his sleep. When they undressed him to wash him and wrap him in his shroud, you can imagine the amazement they discovered that it was a woman, whose beauty suddenly appeared as the essence of that hidden truth, as the riddle that swung between excessive darkness and light. This story has traveled to different countries and times. It has come down to us today, somewhat transformed. Isn't that the destiny of all stories that circulate and trickle down from the highest sources? They live longer than men and bring beauty to our days. But what became of our hero after Fatima's death? Someone asked. He became sad. sadder than before, for his whole life was like flesh, subjected to repeated changes of skin, to the need to make himself mask upon mask. He withdrew to his room, delegated the management of his business to a man who was faithful to the family, and began to write confused, unreadable things. It was at this point that he began once again to receive letters from his anonymous correspondent. Those letters are there, with the same fine, careful, secretive handwriting, that distant voice never named, helped him to live and reflect upon his condition. He developed an intimate relationship with that correspondent. At last he could speak, exist in his truth, live without a mask, in a certain freedom, however limited, and subject to surveillance, even with joy, if an inward, silent joy. This is the letter he received after Fatima's death. Thursday, April 8th. Friend, I know. I feel the wound you bear within you, and I knew the mourning of your days well before the death of that poor girl. You believe yourself capable of every cruelty, beginning with those that slashed your body and darkened your days. Out of pride or ambition, you have summoned up misfortune, even in your most private life, and you have turned it not into pleasure, but into a dangerous game in which you have lost the skin of one of your masks. You wanted that union, not out of pity, but out of revenge. There you made a mistake, and your intelligence has sunk into maneuvers unworthy of your ambitions. Allow me to tell you, as a friend, in all frankness, what I feel. This situation would be too much for most people to bear, but I don't think it will be for you. The girl was a lost soul, and had begun her fall long before. What is the point now of isolating yourself in that room, surrounded by books and candles? Why not go out into the street, abandoning masks and fear? I say this knowing you are suffering. I have known and observed you for a long time. I have learned to read your heart, and your melancholy reaches me despite the distance between us and the impossibility of our ever meeting. What are you going to turn your mind to now? You know how unjust our society is with women, how our religion favors men. You know that in order to live according to one's own wishes and desires, one must have power. You have required a taste for privileges, and perhaps, without wishing it, you have ignored and despised your sisters. They hate you and await only your departure. You will have failed to show due love and respect to your mother, a good woman, who has done nothing but obey you all her life. She still waits and hopes for your return to her breast, your return to her love. Since her husband's death, madness and silence have ravaged her, and you have forgotten her. She is dying from your desertion. She is losing her hearing and her sight. She awaits you. I too await you. But I have more patience. I have enough reserves of love in me for you and your destiny. Till the next time, your friend. This letter annoyed him. He felt that he was being judged and harshly criticized. He was tempted to break off the correspondence, but a desire to understand and explain what was happening inside him overcame his silence and pride. Saturday, at night. Your last letter disturbed me. For a long time I hesitated before replying, but, after all, you must be more than a confidant, a witness of my solitude. Solitude is my choice and my territory. I inhabit it, like a wound lodged in my body that refuses to heal. I say inhabit it, but, on reflection, it is solitude, with its terrors, its heavy silences, and its invading impotence, that has chosen me as its territory, as a peaceful home in which happiness has the taste of death. I know I must live there without hoping for anything. Time transforms and strengthens that obligation. I would like to say it's a question that goes beyond notions of duty or mood. You may understand that one day, if our faces ever meet. Since I withdrew to my room, I have been progressing over the sands of a desert where I see no way out, where the horizon is little more than a blue, ever-receding line. I dream of crossing that blue line and walking through an endless steppe, without thought of what might happen. I walk in order to divest myself of things, to cleanse myself, to rid myself of a question that haunts me and of which I never speak. Desire. I am tired of carrying its insinuations in my body without being able either to reject them or to make them mine. I shall remain profoundly unconsoled, with a face that is not mine and a desire that I cannot name. Finally, I would like to say why your letter has discouraged me. Suddenly, you become moralizing. As you know, I hate psychology and anything that encourages guilt. I thought Muslim fatalism, does it exist, would spare us that petty, evil-smelling emotion. If I write to you, if I have agreed to keep up this epistolary dialogue with you, it is not to be subjected to social morality. The huge ordeal through which I am passing has meaning only outside those petty psychological schemata which claim to know and explain why a woman is a woman and a man a man. No, my friend, the family as it exists in our countries, with the all-powerful father and the woman relegated to domesticity, with a portion of authority left them by the male, that family I reject, wrap up in mist, and no longer recognize. I shall stop here, for I feel anger rising within me, and I cannot allow myself the luxury of allowing it to cohabit the same wound that distress, no, the distress that makes me live and the anger that denatures my deepest thoughts, my sense of purpose. I now leave you and return to my reading. Perhaps tomorrow I shall open the window. I hope to hear from you very soon, friend of my solitude. Friends, I close the book here, open up my heart, and appeal to my reason. During that period of retirement, no one saw him. He had shut himself up in the upper room and communicated with the outside by means of little notes that were often illegible or strange. His mother could not read. She refused to join in this game and threw away the notes addressed to her. He almost never wrote to his sisters, 3 of whom no longer lived in the big house. They had married and seldom visited their sick mother. Ahmed reigned even while absent and invisible. His presence was felt and feared in the house. Everybody spoke quietly for fear of disturbing him. He stayed up there, no longer went out, and only old Malika, the maid who had witnessed his birth and for whom he felt some tenderness, was allowed to push open his door and tend him. She brought him food. She even snitched wine and kif for him, and cleaned his room and the small adjacent bathroom. When she came in, she covered herself entirely with a sheet and sat on a chair on the tiny balcony that overlooked the old town. On leaving, she hid the empty wine bottles in a bag and muttered a few prayers, such as, "May Allah preserve us from misfortune and madness," or "May Allah bring him back to light and life." In this way, he cultivated the power of being invisible. Nobody understood the meaning of his retreat. His mother, who might have understood, was too concerned with her own sick body and her tottering reason. He spent his time shaving and removing the hairs from his legs. He was hoping for some radical change in the destiny that had been more or less given to him. For that he needed time, a lot of time, just as he needed some stranger's eye to light on his changing body as it returned to its origins, as nature resumed her rights. Despite some irritation, he continued to correspond with that anonymous friend. Allow me, my dear companions, to open the book once again and read to you. Tuesday, April 13th. Never again, my friend, will I touch on the problems concerning your family. If I have lacked discretion, it was because of the excess of feeling that tormented and disturbed me. Why did I embark on this correspondence, in which each sentence exchanged merely complicates our labyrinth, in which we grope our way, our eyes blindfolded, at the risk of never meeting? I am and always have been a creature of intuition. When I found myself in your tracks, I was guided by that strong, indefinable feeling. I have observed you from afar and was touched, physically, by the waves you emitted. Perhaps you do not believe in this kind of communication, but I knew at once that I was dealing with an exceptional individual, one existing outside his own being, outside his body. I felt in the physical sense that you were not a man like others. My curiosity became a passion. My intuition oppressed me, drove me ever deeper into my search, bringing me ever closer to you. I have written many letters that I have not sent you. Each time I hesitated and wondered by what right I was pursuing you with my questions, and why I was so determined to give back to your face its original image and features. How could I have confronted you otherwise? What I had to say to you is not said in our society, especially not in public. I am impatient to know your feelings on what I have just confessed to you. Our correspondence has now reached a threshold of complicity that commits us to each other and puts our future at stake. To conclude, I would like to whisper to you at dawn these lines by the mystical poet of the 13th century, Ibn al-Farid. And if night surrounds you and buries these homes in their solitude, light a fire in their darkness with desire. Yours.